is a good. Mhm. Okay, let's try this again. Hello, this is Wowed by Zones, the podcast about reviewing every single zone in the popular MMO World of Warcraft.
Yes, we're not
I
zoned by wows in this search. This podcast. We're then wowed by the zones.
Yes, it would be very strange if us being impressed would cause us to be moved by zones. Wait, that makes no sense. Never mind.
We don't. I mean, the zones, the wows, if the zones wow us. That's good, but if the wows zone us, like they make it that bad, right? You don't want that. We want the zones to wowing by the zones, not the zoning by the wows. Yes.
I guess that would make sense. So being zoned by a WoW would be like when we're like, wow, this zone's bad, we leave.
Yes, exactly.
And turn 360 degrees and moonwalk out of the zone. Okay. Hi, I'm Ari.
Yes, and I'm Torin.
And we have been pretty much like playing World of Warcraft since it came out.
Yes.
At least since the Burning Crusade-ish.
I started in 2005, so
yeah,
a year
so
after it came out, but yeah.
Yeah. During like late vanilla into like early TVC, we've been playing for a while, and like there's a lot of zones. There's a lot of tier lists of zones. There's a lot of like
them, yeah.
There's a few of them.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be fun to go through every single zone, level going roughly in level order, and just seeing like what we think of them.
Yeah. It's a truly masochistic endeavor. There are a lot of zones.
There are a lot of zones.
4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, at least of those. I think there might be more than those. Anyway, so this is our first zone. So of course we have to pick one of the original vanilla WoW starting zones.
Yeah, and we decided that for the original vanilla WoW starting zones, if you didn't know, they were all redone in the Cataclysm expansion. And we decided that we would be reviewing those zones side by side with the Cataclysm and original zone, just to like see the comparison and see how we feel.
Mm-hmm. So what we're starting with today is Dun Morogh, the starting zone for dwarves.
Did you say with a G? Did you pronounce the G?
Do you not?
I thought it was Dun Morogh.
Maybe it should be Dun Morogh.
Dun Morogh. I don't know. I've always said Dun Morogh forever. I didn't even consider it could be different.
What if you just say it with a proper dwarvy accent? You have to say it with a proper dwarvy accent. It's Dun Morogh, lad.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, because like the little G becomes a glottal stop. Yeah,
that actually makes sense.
Yes, that's probably the intention.
Dun Morogh. So we're going to Dun Morogh, where we have dwarves, the starting zone for dwarves and gnomes.
And trogs. You want to play
There's also
trog.
You can't play as a trog. It would be funny.
If you wanted to, you would be starting Dun Morogh.
Dun Morogh. Anyway. So yeah. Let's start with the original vanilla WoW version of the zone, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So when you make your first gnome or dwarf character, you are given like a little fly through that sort of explains what a dwarf or gnome's place in the world is. Before you then come to in the middle of the aptly named Coldridge Valley.
I did want to say that I really like these voiceovers that happen beforehand. They like have this really old school sort of like 80s style role playing game sort of blurb of a race. Like they're very simplistic and they're very like to the point. Like, oh, you are the inquisitive, intelligent race of gnomes, and you've recently been driven out of your home. And this like really like super low, cool voice. I think it just really adds to the experience, especially because as we'll see, these zones don't necessarily do the best job at characterizing the races.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And yeah, I started as a dwarf, and Torin started as a gnome for both versions of the zone. For vanilla WoW, that didn't really do much difference, but we'll get into like how that changes when we come to Cataclysm.
Yep.
So you wake up. You are in this cold, shitty little like valley, infested by wolves, trogs, which are just little simian, gross, warty things. And
I like
also
them.
They're just really gross. And you come up to a guy. He says, "Hey, you should get some gloves." And then
it's quite a hilarious first quest. You kill wolves so he'll make you some gloves.
Like, no, thanks? Just dropped in. Just guys is like, "Hey, it's cold here. You should get some gloves."
You know what's crazy? You don't kill the wolves for their fur to make the gloves, which would make sense. No, you kill the wolves for their meat, and then he trades you your meat for his gloves. Because I don't know why.
Because Coldridge Valley is really shit. It's just it's just a really shitty place. Like you talk to like NPCs there, and all of them hate it, and none of them like Coldridge Valley. It's not a fun place to be.
Yeah, my favorite is the one dwarf who's just like, oh man, there are a lot of boars around. I don't want to do my job. You do it for me, and I'll give you like 3 copper.
It's so funny. Yeah, Coldridge Valley is a very disjointed zone. You just sort of run around doing arbitrary things.
Yeah.
Killing some wildlife and trogs and delivering and doing a quest that you think that you would do a lot of in like the future, where you have to like a timed delivery, where you have to deliver like this hot brew to the little like enclave in Anvilmar. Yeah, there's like not any other of those quests.
Yeah, it's like one of the only ones in the entire game. Like across like 7 or 8 zones, as many as there are in the game, right?
Yeah, it's something like 3 of them.
Yeah, the main quest that's like kind of throughout Dun Morogh, is also introducing Coldridge Valley, which is this like basically this king, or maybe under the king's name, they're always like unclear like who they actually got their orders from. But they like to use the king's name because it makes it more convenient for them. It's to go and like kind of check on the trolls whose like activity has been getting more significant recently. And actually this comes to to one of my favorite parts of the zone. Actually, maybe my single favorite part of the entire Dun Morogh was actually in Coldridge Valley. Even though I don't like Coldridge Valley really much of it, I do like this part, and that's that this guy, Mr. Whitebeard, he lost his journal, right? They got attacked.
Grellin Whitebeard, that's his name.
Grellin Whitebeard. He's come for the king. He's like supposed to be doing like a recon mission on the trolls, and then potentially like lessening their numbers to like help out with like threats against the Morogh. And he has this journal that he gets to, basically when you're killing trolls for him, he comes back and like, oh, they attacked us at night and they stole my journal, and you have to go and like find his journal that's being held up by the big the big bad troll in the end of the cave. And the journal is this like really nice, detailed, day by day sort of experience of him being in the cold, like just like talking about his like kind of like utter like misery and like ennui of like just like sitting there and like watching the trolls day by day, and like one of his things is like no notes today, it's just fucking cold. And I really like that, because it really felt like, well, a lot of the Coldridge Valley just felt like, oh, I'm just doing random stuff because I'm following people with big yellow exclamation points in their heads. This one I actually feel like, oh, I get a sense for the world. I get a sense for this sort of like this Coldridge, this whole like Coldridge Valley, this whole Dun Morogh has been kind of like emptied of like a lot of its life, a lot of its like vitality. Is like most of the Ironforge like dwarves. Ironforge is the city that presides over the whole area. Dwarves have headed off to war, and like the place is just like kind of empty, and there's not much money anymore. There's not really much going on here. There's just these little things, little pleasures like ale, like one of the few things they care about, and just sort of just hanging out. And I really like that characterization that you got from that journal.
It really ties into like really what I think the best thing about vanilla Dun Morogh is, and that's the vibe.
Yeah,
you get this vibe of this like it's not a dangerous place. It is completely like reasonable to be a early zone, but it's kind of a miserable place. A cold, frozen wasteland where you have like the wind blowing, like you have the chill wind blowing all the time. You have these like little like footsteps in the snow. This like this little clarinet's doing a few. It is a clarinet, right? That is
yes.
Doing these like little like little like trills that like help add to the vibe, and it's just kind of, it makes you feel miserable in a way that really, really helps to get to my one of my favorite parts of the zone. because you then leave, because after dealing with the trolls there, you leave Culbridge Valley, take a long, slow walk down the path, past past some trogs that have infested a cave, passing a siege engine and some like a mortar team that's doing a shooting gallery, but the nice big view of Dun Morogh, of the snow and the mountains, the caves, and you come to a town. Come to the town of Keranos, and if you've like taken all the quests, the first place you're going to be stopping is the Keranos Inn. The Keranos Inn is the definition of warmth. You get this nice little like tavern, tavern music with like a lute. You have this nice and a flute, and you have this nice like just the homey vibes with the ale, the beer stock. You have like these dwarves that are like talking like super friendly and stuff. It's so good. It feels warm. It feels cozy. It's such a good contrast to like the cold wasteland of Dun Morogh itself.
Yeah, and I especially love how detailed this place is. Like, there's everything else. Like, I mean, it's an older game. Like, there's a lot of like low poly stuff. Like, it's not the like the game. It's I think it's pretty. I think Dun Morogh is a pretty looking zone, but it's definitely not like a zone that's impressive on any like tactical level. A lot of the ways. But you get to this place, and everything is so detailed. Like every mug is like really complexly drawn. You got like pictures on the walls. You've got just colors. You got like there's like this pretty long little like basement area where like all the brew is kept in the basement. Like there's like a basement and then there's a sub basement.
Huge barrels of ale that are just down there, and you have
and the kind of like complexity of like the textures there, like against the really like barren starkness of the rest of the zone, it just works really well. And I feel like that the journal I explained yesterday, like earlier, kind of like contrasts so well against that. It's fantastic. It's definitely the best part of Dun Morogh.
Oh, 100%. Well, unless you count the zone that is technically part of Dun Morogh, but not really, but we'll get into that. When you get to Keranos, you continue to do more arbitrary shit, unfortunately. There's more hunting, more troll killing. This is sort of a weird thing. Like, there's a weird through line that you deal with throughout Dun Morogh, in which they're like dealing a lot with like a bunch of these like ice trolls, which are like vaguely dehumanized in a way that I think they were trying to do something with. Right? Because we know from playing World of Warcraft, trolls are a playable race. Trolls have like their own whole culture. They have like a whole thing going on with them. And the way that like trolls are talked about by the dwarves is a very like dehumanized way. I think that there's enough of a through line there to be intentional. Like you find their like some of their herbs that they're using in some kind of like ritual that you don't know about because the dwarves don't care about that. Because the dwarves care about this because they've heard it can make good ale.
Oh yeah. Also, the barley blues are just hilarious. They're like, "Oh, go and sabotage our other guys because we don't like them." They're like, oh, "Okay, I guess we'll do that."
It's so funny. You just,
but yeah, I
go down.
I definitely agree. So, I think this is like kind of speaks to a quality of this work, which actually clearly Dun Morogh is an inspiration for Skyrim. Like I think it's pretty obvious.
Dovahkiin, Dovahkiin, to Sparim.
Like across the way, you have this kind of like wasteland. You have these like people who are like obviously like economically not very well off. They sort of just finding the little pleasures they can, and like you trump things. There's a few like bits of warmth of the Skyrim that really like mean a lot to people. But I think like a big part of Skyrim is it's like kind of dealing with. It doesn't deal the best with this any work, but definitely it's trying to attempt to kind of mess with like racism, dehumanism, and that sort of thing. And it's clear that like the dwarves of this place like really have lost the civilization. The people who are important are either in Ironforge or they're off at war. So all we have left are just like the slum. Like, this is basically like small town America, sort of how we the feeling I get of Dun Morogh. And the trolls feel like these people they don't have any way of like interacting with these people. They're just sort of like, I don't get these things. They don't make any sense. They're just dangerous. Like the trolls don't invade any of our places. They're just sort of like there. I mean, the only place we in Colbridge Valley there's a little bit of encampments that are like kind of encroaching. But besides that, most of the time you're going out of your way to find these trolls. Like for example, like with the with the weeds, the shimmerweed stuff. We're just going to their place, killing their priests and taking their sacred objects and making the beer, right? It's very weird that way, and we definitely like have this level of um extremeness of the
Colonialism.
language, yeah, of the dwarf. I thought that's kind of interesting because I think it's simply because the gnomes in the zone, we never really talked about the gnomes yet. The gnomes were driven out of their home of Dun Morogh, right? And so they've ended up living up with the dwarves in Ironforge and in Coolidge Valley and the like. Gnomes never give you a quest at all to kill like souls like this. The gnomes are entirely interested like in their own inventions and their own thing. Like we get to think of the gnomes as sort of the intellectuals of this zone, right? The people who actually care about building things and crafting things, and the people have not been left behind because most of the gnomes actually are here in Dun Morogh or in Ironforge. They're not off in the war. The same
That's
way
not
the
saying
dwarves are.
that's not saying there aren't dwarven intellectuals. Like
No.
In later zones and like a whole thing, like dwarves is clearly they don't value the same kind of intellectualism that the gnomes do.
Yeah.
But there is some stuff there. It's really gonna like come to bear when we get to the zone of Badlands, which is gonna go really into that.
Yes, but interesting how we don't see that here. And I think that's important to note. The gnomes who you get quests from are always asking for, oh, can you help me find my tool, or can you help me like kill this leper gnome. This leper gnome, the leper gnomes are like a disease that like kind of like take gnomes and like first turn them into crazy, some rabid creatures, and then eventually into a puddle of slime. So like they're always going after these much more like high-minded, noble sort of things. With the dwarves, where your goal is to find beer and kill natives for them. It's very interesting that I don't know if it works. Like it feels like we need like a quest that sort of goes against that, being like, hey, what's going on here? But we never get that, and so it kind of like just fades into the background.
Yeah, I definitely feel like you could have done something way more interesting with the trolls, with like someone like maybe you have like a quest for like a dwarf who's like worried about like his daughter or something getting kidnapped by trolls, and you go there and she's like what actually is happening is she's like going in there and actually trying to understand them or something. You could have had something like that. You don't really have that. You don't have anything really done with that could have like there's this undercurrent that had like the potential of something here. I just don't think it quite gets there.
I mean, Dun Morogh, and honestly, this comes with the other issue with Dun Morogh, is it feels kind of an unfinished zone because everything, almost all the quests are in the west half of the map, right, where there's all the trolls, you got trogs, you got the leper gnomes, and
speaking of
also like the animals, you kill some yetis.
I feel like we should mention
but they're yetis, but yeah,
with the gnomes, I feel like we should probably mention that that like you can see Dun Morogh there.
Yes,
it's fucked up. Like you see just like these like just vaguely like wandering around with no clear rhyme or reason, just lost their mind leper gnomes that look gross and diseased, and like dressed in just like shabby rags and just trying to knife you for spare change. These are like the bottom of the barrel like stuff. It's like it's a little like fucked up that like these gnomes have like been degraded to this degree. Yeah, as such a contrast to like the way that gnomes are portrayed, the rest of the regular gnomes are portrayed.
Yes, exactly. Like no, it's clear gnomes clearly very. They had a great kingdom, like a kingdom, yes, but like a great kingdom of Dun Morogh that's like was well founded. They were well off, everything was good, and just something went horribly wrong, and now everything is like messed up. And it's interesting because every time we talk to like a dwarf, they're like, "Oh yeah, this happened to gnomes because they push too far. They have too much like interest in like technology and like pushing like the envelope and that sort of thing, which leads to like." Them to like destroy themselves, and this kind of like dismissal of the gnomes played a little bit by the dwarves I thought was kind of interesting. Because like you actually see those gnomes who've actually been suffering. It's like it's horrific. Like they're not. They're not intelligent anymore. There's nothing left of them. Yeah.
It's kind of cool. Like I think it also adds to the whole bleak vibe that you get from like the whole of Dun Morogh, just like what this bleak place is.
Yeah.
Yes, you were talking about, but yes, sorry. I felt like it was that Dun Morogh is like a really interesting area that like doesn't look, it feeds into the rest of the zone, but it looks very different. So I felt like it was worth mentioning it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so Dun Morogh, of course, is also in the west part of the zone, where all the stuff is. And then we get to the east part of the zone, right? And there's like this ranch, and the ranch is like, oh, there's a yeti who's eating our stuff, and you go kill that yeti. And that's all you do in that ranch. Or there's like this other place where it's like, oh, there's some trogs, and they
fucked up our mining operation.
Yeah, go kill them. And there's one like literally the most like crazy dwarf in like the whole thing. Just like, oh, I fucking hate frogs. I want them all to die. I will not address till every single last one is dead. Go kill them all for me. It's like frothing at the mouth, lunatic. And you do that. He's like,
so funny.
So I'm like, what is happening here? But yeah, and there's a kind of quarry here. It's clearly like they literally mentioned, oh, we were like mining deep into the earth, and we know like for a fact that trogs are like a creature that they come for the deep earth, right? The only reason they popped up and they started attacking you is because you fucking like messed up their home, and they came up and they're like, and literally the dwarves be like, oh, I have no idea why they started attack. I have no idea why they started attacking us. It makes no sense. We were just mining peacefully.
Yeah, no, like there's definitely an indication, like there's some indication, like here and there that the trogs are a way bigger threat than anyone gives them credit for, because like they fucking destroyed Dun Morogh.
Yeah,
like the reason why Dun Morogh is fucked up is because the gnomes dug too deep and unleashed the trogs.
Yep, and then they tried to defeat the frogs, and in doing so, they destroyed their whole homeland.
Yeah, and there's an interesting little there's a through line here. Now, I don't think they really didn't do anything with it like too much later, because the problem is that trogs, you can't make trogs into villains. They're just weird, stupid, warty creatures that like hit you with rocks.
I'm hoping we get cool trog stuff in the new expansion. Look what we're saying.
That's true. We might have some
that's
stuff.
my hope, because they're finally going underground to like the places where you would find trogs. We'll see.
Yeah, well, we won't go too much into what trogs actually are, because that's, again, Badlands is going to go more into that.
Yeah. Badlands, and a lot of the cool like threads set up in this zone are way better than Badlands. There's a much better zone than this, in my opinion.
Now, let's get to the part of the zone that pisses me off the most. So, the dwarves have, in Vanilla WoW, like have sort of an ongoing war with another clan of dwarves, with like obsidian volcanic themed dwarves with like red eyes, themed like volcanic, called the Dark Iron Clan. And there's a camp down in like that used to be like owned by a dwarf that has been overrun by trogs and Dark Iron, and that overrun by trogs that seem to be like kind of commanded by some Dark Iron dwarves that have like whose leader is like down in like in the encampment there, and is like, there's no fucking quest to go there. This like very obvious, like, oh, this should be probably the last area you go to for the zone to like really like start to go into the dwarves' war with the Dark Iron Clan, and there's just fucking nothing. There's no quest there. I don't know why. Like, did they just run out of time when they made the zone? Did they just forget to put quests there? Like, the only reason I found that place exists is because I was playing a warrior, and warrior just happens to have a quest that goes there.
Yeah, it's really strange, because like this should be like, oh, there's so much you do. Be like, oh, so the reason why that like so we have these like these different agents right throughout the zone, telling you to go and kill them trolls with the whole order of like the king, and like be like, okay, so if this actually built up something important, okay, if we found out if one of the agents, oh wait, the reason why these trolls have been having more activity, but they've been pushed together by the Dark Iron dwarves. They've been like pushing, they've been like, agitating the trolls and like giving them weapons or something like that, right? You could like really easy with very little change to the zone, just have your final Whitebeard agent be like, hey, wait a moment, it was these Dark Iron dwarves the whole time. And then you could like end with some kind of like cool battle where they would plan to invade Ironforge or something like that, which would have been awesome. That would have been so
put a pin in that, because that will come back later.
Yeah. But yes, the end of the zone, it's just like it's just empty. Like it's got nice vibes to it, but there's like almost literally nothing there. Like you've got one random guy, you go up to north, it's like, oh hey, my friend disappeared, and you find you're like, can you go check him on? Like you go check a friend, he's been killed by a bear. You're like, oh okay, I guess we'll kill that bear now. And it's very like, okay.
Like, a quest that is incredibly easy. Oh, speaking of which, that and another quest where you have to like find a Yeti. I feel like it's just so weird, because there's nothing that naturally takes you either to the North Watchtower or to back into the western part of the zone. There's like a little hill where there's an elite like Yeti with like a powerful monster there, and there's an Ironforge flag somewhere in there that you could, like, if you follow all the way up, you find a dwarf who's been like holed up here and wants to get his stuff back that got stolen by this big Yeti. You're not going to find that if you're not like actively like looking for it, because there's no reason to go there. Not for either of them.
Yeah. It's strange. I mean, I here's my argument. This is the design philosophy they're clearly going for, because those two the quests are like two of the only quests that give you green level items in the whole zone.
That's true.
And my assumption is, the idea is like they want to encourage people to like really explore and push into like these weird places, and as such find the better gear. Kind of old school sort of D&D mindset to like exploration, right? Where it's like, oh, you put the harder to find items like in the more like obscure places, encouraging exploration, and so people will explore your whole zone. And I think that was the goal of it. And I don't necessarily hate that.
That's fair.
There are clues and stuff left around to find these places. It's not like the guy in like the West Coast zone you killed the Yeti for. He's like, you can see where he's going based off of the fact that he has like a flag and like a little like broken off supplies. And you follow that little path, you'll find him. So it's like there are clues there, and I think that they wanted you to look for those clues, which I don't hate.
What's interesting there is that like you find the Yeti before you find the dwarf usually. Like you head up the mountain, you see this like big scary Yeti, and if you try to fight this Yeti alone, you will die. Like it is an elite mob, which is not meant to be fought with just one, and also it's like high level for the zone. And then you like if you want to like actually like figure out what like the Yeti has actually done, you have to like go up further and find the dwarf. And that's kind of interesting. That's kind of an interesting way to do it. That I don't think most games would have done it that way. Most games would put the dwarf on the earlier portion and then have the dwarf tell you to go get his stuff from the Yeti.
And I think it's a very strong kind of indication of the design philosophy of Vanilla WoW.
Yeah,
which was very much the interest in just like, okay, we have these types of like stories which are sort of like strung together, sort of the main story which you kind of follow, but really the meat of the storytelling is supposed to just sort of occur if you live and experience the world. Like that is definitely the goal, and which Cataclysm, as we'll see, is the exact opposite philosophy.
Yes. So do you want to talk about our favorites and least favorites about the zone now, or do you want to move on to the Cataclysm version first and come back to it at the end?
I mean, I want to move to Cataclysm. We also should mention before, the crowning joy of all of Dun Morogh is Ironforge, the capital city of the dwarf. And the quest we go to this Ironforge is sort of like it's a sort of incidental quest. You talk to the senator who's like, "Hey, you can't use the king's name in vain." It's kind of silly, but the reason why he gave you the quest is because they wanted you to go to Ironforge. And the reason I wanted you to go to Ironforge is because Ironforge is one of the coolest fucking goddamn places I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's any video game ever, not just in Vanilla WoW. Yeah, just ever.
It's incredible. You walk up this long winding hill, and you sort of see like an entrance of sorts in the very, but it doesn't look that impressive, right? Because it's like. It's sort of like a cool little gate thing, but you can't really see because most of it underground. But then you walk into it, you go through these like high level guards.
There's this massive statue of a dwarf raising his hammer in triumph.
And then the music changed, and you got this like really like epic,
bombastic,
just music, just like big horns playing strings. It is like nothing like the whole zone has got this very low key, quiet little
soft pianos.
Yeah. And then of course you got the light little tavern music and like and
Theranos.
Yep. But then here it's nothing like before. You're like, this is important. This is the city. This is the most important place we've ever been.
Yeah, look up if you're like listening to this, go on to YouTube and look up Ironforge theme. And if you have not heard it before, it is worth hearing. It is so good. I love the vibe of like when you enter there for the first time, and this like place beneath the mountain where like fire itself like you get this mountain where like there's lava flows that the dwarves have harnessed to like forge their metal armor and weapons. You have these like huge grand halls. You have this massive library. Speaking of dwarven intellectualism, the Hall of Explorers, I think, where like you have this just massive library. It's big. The city feels big in a way that like all the areas prior did not.
Yeah, and God, the massive like lava flows in the it's just like, I don't know. It's for me, it's like the platonic idea of what a dwarven city can be. It's so awesome. It's like and I love how like it's like it's hard to even imagine being there, knowing the rest of the zone, because it's like, as we understand, like you like know any like dwarven fiction, it's like dwarves always are like appear to be like not that interesting, not that powerful, and then you like enter their underground kingdom, and it's like, oh my god, this is and I think Ironforge like succeeds in that like perfectly.
Oh yeah, you get the impression of like this is air. Yeah, this is like it's Erebor before the exile is what it is. Like it has that kind of vibe to it, like of this, and also you get some gnomish stuff too, because there's a little refugee like town that has been like carved out of the city by the gnomes that has like little gears and fun little sprockets here that leads into a little tram that heads to another city. But
that's for another though. But yeah, it's a good lie. It's a fantastic city. I don't even much to say about it. It's just like sheer awe. You have to experience yourself. Like listen to music, look up like a walkthrough of what the city looks like. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's Dun Morogh. That is the original version of Dun Morogh. Now, the remade version of Dun Morogh. I think I'll start because I played a dwarf, so I still started in Coldridge Valley. The remade version of Coldridge Valley is it definitely feels like they made some attempts to like make it feel more urgent. Instead of just like going out and like killing a bunch of wolves, there's like a bunch of trogs that are like actually attacking, treated like as an actual like invasion that like the quest giver is like actively fighting off as you like have to deal with them. As he was like, hey, you get a weapon. We need to kill these trogs and stop them from like attacking. And you go do that. And then you kill some of like their more powerful ones. You help people lock down in Anvilmar, and then just like before you do deal with the trolls, like it's very similar to the original Coldridge Valley, but like tried to like tighten it up a bit. And you find out about these trolls that like, and you like try to investigate the trolls. You find out they're doing some kind of like ritual involving a fire elemental that wants to like burn the dwarves out of the valley so that they can reclaim it. And you go do that. You go into their cave. You kill their leader. Kill the fire elemental that he's summoned. And then you go back and you head out. It's very similar to the original Coldridge Valley, but like tightened up a bit in a way that I do like. Trying to like, and it tries to introduce some stuff like the dwarven interest in archaeology gets introduced earlier with like this one like eccentric archaeologist that's trying to like reclaim some of like the tablets and stuff that were jarred loosed by the cataclysm. It does feel weird that the trolls have been turned from like that the colonialism like metaphor from the trolls earlier kind of just goes away in Cataclysm, because the trolls actually are a threat now. They actually are causing problems.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a theme. I think there's a few themes here that'll like hold true like across Cataclysm. It's that certain world building elements that I think Classic pretty carefully set up, Cataclysm was very unthoughtful with. Cataclysm is very much a thing happened. Yeah, it's very, very narratively focused instead of the versus the exploration focused of like the things. You have like a lot of stuff like that where it's like, it's more exciting to have a threat like this, and so we'll have a threat like this rather than sort of trying to slowly build up trolls in that way.
Yeah, and instead of going through this long tunnel and taking this long trek up to like the Warm Inn at Keranos, you just find a gnome, and he gives you a flying machine to take you all the way there. He tells you some stuff like, oh hey, the gnomes reclaimed Gnomergon, good on us. And that's kind of cool. I really dislike that we lost that trudge through the snow up to the warmth of Keranos. It's just such a big loss for the zone.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to go for the Gnomish Starring Zone. So I played through the Gnomish Starring Zone, and it's interesting. So it's basically the gnomes tried to reclaim Gnomergon, they failed spectacularly. That's and you are like, you start with the zone basically trying to escape from the Gnomergon you just tried to recapture, and trying to save people from becoming leper gnomes and that sort of thing. And then you come out of the surface and you you basically are like, the head of the evil leper gnomes who are like ruling Gnomergon in the stead of the gnomes has sent up his army to like basically like mess with the gnomes and attack them and try to like drive them out, which you eventually defeat them and save some gnomes. And you do discover here that there is probably a cure for leper gnomacy, which is pretty cool. So there is some stuff like that. But my issue with this place is it feels like so much on rails. Like you just go from thing to thing to thing. I'm like a roller coaster, right? There's like literally a moment where you try to get de-irradiated when you leave like Gnomergon, and like they literally put you on a little cute little gnome like little flying machine, and then just like slowly moves through like gnomes shooting you with like de-irradiation beams and water and stuff like that. And it's like 2 minutes of me just like sitting on this thing, slowly blinking. I'm just like, and in that like moment of like the complete like just I'm going from point A to point B, and I'm just sort of getting splashed on the way. Is like a metaphor for how I feel like this whole beginning gnome section feels. Like I like the idea of it, but I just in practice I find it really like kind of honestly a miserable experience. I do not like that starting part at all.
Really?
No, I do not like that at all.
Interesting.
And there's no environmental storytelling, anything like that. It's just like it's just we're no more gone here like we were before, but now like we do a claim, but we did a bad job of it, so we just fight some cool mech guys. I don't know.
Yeah. I do like how the gnomes are more integrated into the zone compared to Vanilla WoW. I feel like Vanilla WoW Dun Morogh does suffer a little bit from there aren't very many gnomes in the zone.
But I don't mind that because the gnomes are often like set to the side and everything. We get like the one gnome, the two gnomes, for example, we find in a hut who nearby are like, hey, so like fuck all that weird like
the husbands.
Yes. Fuck all that weird dwarf stuff of like killing animals and like making beer based reeds. We have important stuff. We want to save our race. Like these people have much more urgency, but they're like not like integrated into Keranos at all. They're just their own place doing their own research. And here we just have the gnomes are integrated in that regard, but I feel like I honestly like feel it almost feels they're integrated in that they feel more a part of the zone. They integrate less in that they don't feel like as important a part of the zone to me.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's fun. I don't mind the Novergard server zone, but it just I actually just think it loses a lot of the fun of like the fun of gnomes isn't really there for me that much. Like, it's kind of there, like the pithy jokes and stuff. And then so I don't really have much of that, but I also don't have any of the really like immersive elements of the Culver's Valley that I remember from the original thing that I really liked, like the Journal of Whitebeard and like one thing that is great though is they have those cute little critters that are like little mechanical like cats that walk around. They're the cutest things in the world. So it's 10 to 10 best zone.
True. All right. And then the dwarves and gnomes meet each other up at Keranos again, just like they did before. And from there, the questing is pretty much the same for both gnomes and dwarves. You deal with like the trolls that apparently have been like the cataclysm has caused them to like be like driven from their homes and like are like being an actual threat to the dwarves.
Yeah.
And so you like deal with until you go in and you deal militarily with some of these like which like is basically escalated to open war. What the earlier like weird colonialism stuff has clearly escalated to outright open warfare. And you help the dwarves and gnomes kill a bunch of these trolls and stop them from invading.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's actually kind of cool, I like this is Cataclysm added this really cool troll like theme that popped up a bunch. And the first time you hear it actually is in this when you go into the troll like village, it starts playing the troll music, which is just like very like weird, like mystifying, not classical style music at all. Like it feels so different than like the moral music or the normal music, something like that. That I thought was really cool, and I like that a lot. It felt like it really established the trolls as something that's have their own culture, their own importance. That that is I like that. Mm-hmm. That's a cool element of the zone. It's also just a great song. So
we love the troll song. And you go deal with them. You take down their leaders. And you stop this threat. And I feel like, again, just like in Vanilla WoW, there could have been more done with this. With the colonialism metaphor, which is very clearly built in the original thing. And you could definitely build into that with the fact that, like, these trolls are here and are invading us because the only contact they've had with the dwarves here has been hostile, and they just lost their home. There's a little because they did, right?
Because the cataclysm just happened. The trogs were pushed out of their deep homes into the troll caves, and the trolls were then pushed out of the troll caves. And so that's what the situation we're in now. And they're like, well, where do we go? We lived here forever. Like we've lived here way longer than the dwarves have lived here. We don't have a place. There's no home for us. So like I guess we'll have to fight because they're our only option. Because these dwarves have been extremely hostile to us for years.
And there's definitely like the makings of something that could be a story here, but neither version of the zone quite gets there, I think.
Yeah, I agree. One thing is really nice about this thing, which is across the board, is that it's so much tighter. The vanilla Dun Morogh takes like 5 hours to get through. It is so
big.
Long. And there's not actually that many quests. There probably is like less. There's probably not more than like 20 or so quests in the zone. It takes so long purely because there kill so many enemies, trudge through so much. Their enemies are so far apart. And often the quest breadcrumbs aren't very like well like laid out, so you don't really know where you're going or why. Which like in a way like kind of feeds into exploration, but in a lot of other ways it just feels like I don't even know what this. It just feels kind of meaningless. Cataclysm tightens that up quite a lot. You're basically doing the same things: kill trolls, kill animals because you want to have nice beer-based ribs, kill some yetis.
I love the beer-based boar ribs.
Some
It's
trogs.
iconic.
Yeah, it's like it's the same sort of thing. Though I do miss the to get rid of the what are they called the other what's the other dwarf family the beer family
The barley brews, the thunder
barley brews.
brews.
Yes, we get rid of the barley brews thunder brew conflict, which is sad because the barley brews are
Right,
really dumb and I
because
like them.
because they turned that area to where the final battle of the gnome starting zone takes place, right?
Yes, correct. So no more barley brews. So we have no more like sneaking into our place and
And stealing beer
and like replacing it with like bad beer. And we'd also have no more of like killing troll priests for their beer weed.
No, I think that was still there actually. There still was the Shimmerweed quest.
Oh
I
yeah,
think.
You're right. It was there.
That was one of the quests they kept.
Yes.
Speaking of quests they kept, and then you go to the Trog mines where there are still Trogs, and there's still the guy who hates them and wants them dead.
It's the quest. I believe the quest is completely unchanged. They just like, this guy's too iconic and there's like weird xenophobia. We have to keep him. I do like in that zone they introduced a dwarf who like says who doesn't care about the Trogs or anything. He's just like, please go and rescue the dwarven artifacts. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I like how they try to build. I like how they try to build that like a little earlier in Cataclysm. Try to build the dwarven like intellectualism and the build of like the most important thing that is to dwarves, which is their history and their archaeology. And like that is so huge for them. Like, and you see this in Ironforge that they have that entire library dedicated to just archaeology. I love Ironforge. It's still so great.
And the best part of the Cataclysm Zone, which is completely lacking from the part of the original zone, is that we
finale.
Yeah, the finale. We actually do the Dark Iron Dwarves. We actually fight them.
It's awesome. You first like that. Remember that area I mentioned earlier where there's like a bunch of Dark Iron Dwarves? You go there. You go there. You find like some sabotages going on. You find like the battle plans from like their Dark Iron leader. You find that, and he's like, oh shit. This is an invasion. This isn't just like scouting party. The Dark Irons are planning an invasion. You have to go right away, and like sends you like back to like ride up to an area of the zone that was previously completely inaccessible. Because Cataclysm like had to rework a bunch of the zones to account for flying, so all the zone had to be like accessible. So you go to this like airship that was previously not accessible, and there's just this army of Dark Iron dwarves and golems battling against the dwarves and Ironforge, and you have to like put out the fires, rally the troops, fight the dwarves, do this like huge like bombing run before like going and fighting their general who's riding a giant golem.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's super cool.
Sick.
It's what the original zone needed as a finale, because it's like it's just so obvious. Like it's like we like the original zone has the Dark Iron dwarves there, and like they're obviously like they're the big enemies of the dwarves. They always have. They're the main enemy of the dwarves, and that's their rival. It's like, why in their first zone do we not get that build up like in the original zone? I love how Cataclysm does, and it's fantastic. It's a great.
Oh yeah. And then
and also I think it introduced something that I quite like, in that. Actually, I'll talk about this later. Because it's about comparing the two zones. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Then just like in the original one, you go back and head into the city, which is a little less impressive because you did just griffin in earlier. There is a little which I get. It's a good like little thing to like introduce new players to be like, hey, this is the system you use to like travel around the realm. Here's a griffin rider. Here's how you unlock other griffin riders. It's not been updated, even though like griffin riding is not quite work the same as it did back in Cataclysm, but we'll not get into that. And it's a nice little thing, and you lose the big like climbing up the mountain into Ironforge, and I do find that a little bit sad. So it's not quite as impressive as it is in Vanilla WoW, but it's still Ironforge. It's still sick. It's still awesome.
There is a quick note to dwarf politics. During the originals, the classical the Vanilla WoW, the king of Ironforge was
Magni Bronzebeard.
Magni Bronzebeard, yes, and like we have the Senate there and the throne room, that sort of thing. But Magni is the center figure. He is there. He is the king. He has passed away. No, he
listen. As far as they knew in Cataclysm, when he like did the ritual to stop Ironforge from collapsing and turned himself into diamond, that killed him, as far as anyone knew at the time.
So now we have a council of like the three tribes. So the dwarves are made of three tribes: the Ironforge dwarves, the Wildhammer dwarves, and the Dark Iron dwarves.
Yes, yeah, the same dwarf. And you might be asking, hey, aren't those Dark Iron dwarves the ones that we were having like war with earlier? Yes, yes, they are. In fact, their queen is, and by the way, the reason that they're here, their whole reason the Council of Three Embers exists, is because the heir to the throne of Ironforge is Dagran Thorison II, son of Magni's daughter, and the Dark Iron Emperor from Vanilla WoW. So that's a whole thing.
Yeah,
it's
fantastic. I love how they do that. And it's like you come in, you're like this is how you're introduced to dwarf politics. It's like, oh, you like why is there a Dark Iron invasion? Aren't those your people? And she's like, well, go arrest the ambassador because he obviously was playing against us. Because obviously there's still Dark Iron dwarves who go against her. But it's like here's a huge like political upheaval in Ironforge, which I feel like the original was sort of trying to do, and it's like, oh, the guy's using the king's name in vain, that sort of thing. But they really like completely failed at doing anything with the politics in that original zone. Here it does a great job of like having this really great escalation and confrontation with the Council of Three.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
Yeah, and you arrest the senator, and that's roughly where the zone ends with the sort of with a little foreboding like thing. The like, this is not the only group of Dark Irons that opposes Moira's rule and wants to and serves the Twilight's Hammer, which are sort of a major big bad in Cataclysm. So like just for promises of this is going to be a problem later, which admittedly I know mostly exists to justify why there are still Dark Iron enemies, even though the Dark Iron dwarves have technically joined the alliance at this point. But yes, it's very cool. It's a thing the original version of the zone was missing sorely. Okay.
Yes. So overarching thoughts on the whole zone. So
all right.
I'm going to go back to the vanilla here. Is what I love about vanilla Dun Morogh is it's vibes. It's an incredible place. I love its like small town sort of like abandoned sort of feel. It's people trying to find some meaning, some warmth, some like thing in the where the army is left, where like all like we have tons of quests, but people are like, yeah, I'm going off the war now. I probably might not make it back. Can you help me like make my tank comfortable because I want to live in comfort in the few days before I might die for my emperor, for my king. And so there's stuff like that is I think so fantastically done. In the original zone, like this place completely robbed of its warmth. It's like both like literally and metaphorically through the war and through like the dwarves sort of commitment to the alliance. Which I think is I really love, and I love how like slow and ponderous a lot of it. I love the like world building through the like the reason. I really frustrates me that there's no like payoff of this, and that's what I love about Cataclysm One. They have the payoff to that. We have here's the actual war. It's at our doorsteps now, right? We fight these Dark Iron sort of army, but at the same time, I think Cataclysm completely and utterly fails to give me that feeling of any of the vibes of the original show, and any of the warmth. It feels like it fails to like instill the feeling of coldness, the feeling of being left behind, that sort of like the like lack of intellectual, that sort of thing. So I actually think that my perfect version of zone would be like the end of the Cataclysm zone, like just grafted onto the original zone, and then go for some of the
like more like threads doing stuff, elaborating on the troll stuff a little better, and
tuned up. Of course, the pacing is a little bit too slow in the original.
It's a little bit too slow. I think I remember we first did it to like get through the whole zone. It took like 5 hours.
Yes,
it was so long.
Yeah, but Cataclysm zone is like maybe an hour and a half.
Yeah, which I think I generally think is better if you can.
Yeah, so but I think in the end I still think I prefer the original zone, like much prefer the original zone, because for me that's what Dun Morogh is, and Cataclysm just feels, as I said, like a little bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. Like, I do appreciate though that it like does try to like get the vibes there for like new players. It does try to like create an interesting like thing to like drop new players in, and hey, you're doing something. In a way, the original zone just sort of meandered.
Oh yeah, for sure. The original zone definitely has that sort of old school RPG. Oh, you're an adventurer, so clean my socks sort of vibe to
it. Yeah, that's real. So I guess I'll ask this: what is your favorite thing about the original Dun Morogh?
My favorite thing, It's a toss up between Kyranos and the Whitebeard's journal in Coldridge Valley. Those two are my favorite parts of it.
And now you're supposed to ask me what my favorite thing
was. Hey, Ari, what are your favorite things in the original Dun Morogh?
My favorite thing about the original Dun Morogh, I think my favorite thing in the original Dun Morogh has to be like the ascent to Ironforge.
Yeah, it's something
so fucking good. Just like as you just like climb up the mountain and just go in, and there's just like the grand, like the statue, the music, the armor. It's like you don't just see like you see like armored warrior dwarves. It's so good. I love it.
Yeah.
What is your least favorite thing about the original Dun Morogh?
Least favorite thing? It's not anything specific about the original Dun Morogh. It's just sort of the general sort of like sloppiness of execution and the lack of a delivered finale on its themes. Like those are my least favorite two things. It's not like this specific quest is bad or anything like that. It's more like this kind of general sort of sloppiness of its construction.
Mm-hmm.
How about yours? What is your least favorite thing about Dun Morogh?
I think my least favorite thing about the original Dun Morogh is probably I think it's the way that like the zone like almost builds into like a narrative about colonialism and dehumanization, and then just does nothing with it, because it has the threads like in Whitebeard's journal and like the way that like you interact with the trolls. There's this interesting start of like this kind of dehumanization and colonialism narrative that just goes nowhere.
Yeah, that makes sense. I totally agree.
Now, what is your favorite thing about Cataclysm, Dun Morogh?
Finale. It's there's no question. By far the best part is the finale with the Dark Iron Dwarves and the big army and that whole like bombing run. It's just awesome. And then up to like the conclusion where you like accuse Moira. It's just it's a great ending. I have no words for it. It's perfect.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to. I don't like saying the same thing as you if I think, but I feel like Cataclysm Dun Morogh, you just have to. The finale at the airstrip is so fucking good. It's just like such a good like way to end the zone, way to like build into like what are the big like threats of dwarviness. And I just you could literally I wish that you just literally slap that into the original version of the zone, and
yeah, it's true.
Have that be there. It would be so sick.
Also, shrink rays on trolls is kind of funny.
That was pretty funny. They're just like, I can't lift my tools anymore.
I'm too small.
It's made to gnome size.
Cataclysm has a lot of pithy humor like that, as we'll see.
Yes. I don't think Dun Morogh is too bad about it, though. I think
Dun Morogh is not like there's no like, oh, here's a giant here the whole zone that's
what if we
Indiana Jones or something like that. Speaking of colonialism, we'll talk about that in many episodes from now, which is one of the coolest ideas for a zone that it completely fails.
Yes, it is quite possibly my least favorite zone in the game. No, it's my second least favorite zone in the game. There's one zone in Shadowlands that certainly is a zone that they made. I don't know if we'll review it or not. It's not really a leveling zone, but it sure is a zone.
It sure is a zone, yes. But yes, your least favorite thing in the original, the new Dun Morogh, the Cataclysm.
My least favorite thing in Cataclysm Dun Morogh, I think it has to be the loss of the vibe. Like you just don't have the vibe of desolation, and like you don't have the vibe of desolation as contrasted by these little points of warmth. And the grand, like both of the city and the inn, that you just don't have that anymore.
Yeah,
that's probably my least favorite thing. Like the biggest loss, like I mentioned, the thing like instead of trudging through the snow up towards the inn, you just talk to a gnome and he gives you a flying machine and you just fly there.
Yeah,
you see what that's I think my least favorite thing. The fact that they took away that in favor of just hey, here's a gnome, here's if it gives you a flying machine. So lame. So lame. What is your least favorite thing about now obviously you didn't do this one because that's from the Coldridge Valley remake, but what was your least favorite thing about Cataclysm Dun Morogh?
I think it's the sort of like the tightness of it is nice in a way, but I think it's really just like kind of railroad. Oh, you go from this part of the zone to this part of the zone to this part of the zone to this part of the zone, and it's kind of related to your thing where it's just like it's hard to like take a stop and breathe and be like, why am I doing this thing? So what's the point of these quests? I found myself starting to skim quests pretty quickly through instead of like reading through. The original one I was very much I read every word because I wanted to know, like I wanted to get everything out of the zone. Where the Cataclysm felt like, oh, well, we just sort of jump from thing to thing to thing, and it's like, oh, you go from here, and, oh, take an airship to here, oh, take a parachute over here. I'm like, you're like it's like an action adventure movie. It's like I don't know, like watching a Marvel movie.
Yeah, I can definitely see that vibe. I don't think I hate the railroading necessarily. I just think there's like enough. I think there needed to be like just a little more.
Yeah, for sure.
A little more of the vibe.
I don't think either zone is bad, actually. I think
no. Yeah, I agree. I think both of these are good zones for what they are.
Yeah, but I definitely would say I prefer the original Dun Morogh.
Yeah, I'm not sure because I love the finale of the Cataclysm Dun Morogh so much.
Yeah, it is great.
And it doesn't take 5 fucking hours to go through. Yeah, I think if I were to fix this zone, how would you fix this zone? I think could be an interesting one. I think the two things I would want to do to fix the original Dun Morogh, and I think this very much goes together because this is not a sequel, because there's sort of, we'll get into this. There's two kinds of zones in Cataclysm zones that were remade. There are sequel zones and there are revamped zones. This is a revamped zone. This is trying to hit a lot of the same beats that the original Dun Morogh did, while like dealing with some of the new lore. It doesn't feel like a sequel to the zone, which
yes,
I personally think is a positive. When we get to Westfall, we will have thoughts about Cataclysm Westfall.
Yes. Those some of the sequel zones are good. Like like Stone Town Mountain, for example. But
fair. But yeah, this is attempt. I think you could definitely like take some of the better ideas from the Cataclysm zone, like the Dark Iron invasion and the airstrip, and try to tie it a little like stronger with like the colonialism metaphor. I think you should do more with that, because I think there's the beginnings of something interesting with the way that like the dwarves and the trolls interact in this like hostile way, and there's not even an attempt at understanding when like they're like, again, there's a vibe there that I think you could do something with, that it just really it's either too scared to get into or it just isn't interested in telling that story.
Yeah.
That I would like to see more of.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I have the same thought. Like, if I want to make the original zone better, I would take the end of Cataclysm zone and graft it onto it, and then I would just generally like put
flesh out
like,
the trolls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually coming into this was like, oh, the trolls are my least favorite part of the zone. There's no reason for them to be there. But then I like looked at the stuff. There's the beginnings of something interesting here.
And also I would make it so we have to kill less boars, because you have to kill like hundreds of boars.
Oh god, fuck that. Sorry, can I change my least favorite to be my original one to be that fucking quest for bear fur and boar ribs? Because that was the worst. That quest sucks so bad.
It was quite something, I'll say. Yes.
A long part of our thing was just us trying to kill the bears and try to get all of our fucking bear fur. All these bears that don't have enough fur for to be a whole quest item.
There's a 25% of drop rate for fur. You need 4 of them, and there are only like 10 bears in the zone.
It's a problem. But yeah, overall, I think both of us would recommend this zone. I think that starting as a gnome or a dwarf in Cold Ridge Valley are fine ways to start both versions of WoW.
I agree. Yes, it's fun.
I don't think either version of the zone is like superlative. Like, I wouldn't recommend the zone necessarily, but I wouldn't recommend against the zone.
Yeah, I think I would recommend the original Dun Morogh. I think it's an experience that I'm glad I had, and I think people would enjoy it. It's as long as they're like okay with very slow moving storytelling that maybe does not deliver. Now,
obviously if you want to play a gnome, or if you really want to play a gnome or a dwarf, you should play this zone, because this is where you start if you're a gnome or a dwarf.
Yes. Unless you're doing the Exiles Ridge thing later on, but yes.
Yeah. Well, that would be a thing we talk about in a much later episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, solid zone. Both versions of the zone are are somewhere between decent and good. None of them are outright bad. There's definitely some problems I have with them, but yeah, it was an alright zone.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Well,
all right, Torin, what zone are we going to be hitting next?
I think if we go alphabetically for first level zones, I think it's Durotar next, the land of orcs and trolls.
Yes. Hey, remember how we mentioned like the dehumanization of troll stuff? Hey, now we're gonna play some trolls and orcs.
Still managed to dehumanize them, because that's just how it is. You got to dehumanize the trolls.
Stop dehumanizing the trolls, man.
It happens. And also we're going to a desert, the exact opposite of the cold wasteland we're in here. I guess it's also a wasteland, so not the opposite in that regard. But the opposite is it's hot instead of cold.
Well, I've been Ari.
I'm still Torin. I'm not Ben Torin. I will be Torin going forward. And or when we based on WoW, right? That was the name of the podcast, right?
Did you say based on WoW?
Something like
beer
that.
Beer pasted WoW ribs.
Beer pasted WoW ribs.
No, wait. Can we change the podcast? No, it's wowed by zones is what this is what the podcast is called.
We want to be wowed by zones, not zoned by wows.
Have a great day.
Yeah, bye bye.